If Aprilia got its lineup of Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi at the end of 2023 somehow, you could argue at that time it'd be the best lineup in MotoGP, and that's without Martin being champion. In 2025, that argument doesn't really hold water, and not just because Ducati has formed a super team. Martin looks stronger than ever, but Bezzecchi's 2024 did damage that he has to repair. Why was it so rough? Why did Aprilia sign him anyway? And can he become a MotoGP superstar after all? We need to remember that Bezzecchi's MotoGP career is just 3 years old. There were 5 rookies in 2022 and he was the best one by far. Then he was fantastic. In 2023 he emerged as one of the grid's best low grip riders, and he gave Valentino Rossi, the team owner, his first MotoGP Grand Prix win. Then 2 more. And his best performance was arguably even none of the wins, but instead his ride in the Termas Sprint. You'll remember it as the race Brad Binder won from 15th on the grid, but Bezzecchi was 6 places behind Binder after 2 laps, and then so nearly won anyway. That marked him out as a special rider. And don't take my word for it, Casey Stoner said in 2023 that Bezzecchi already in Moto2 had something the others don't, and that if you took away traction control, he would be one of the few running at the front and would have an advantage. MotoGP, of course, didn't take traction control away in 2024. Instead, the series tire supplier Michelin brought a new rear tire that offered more performance, which Bezzecchi could not make use of. A lot of teams and bikes and riders couldn't, particularly riders like Bezzecchi on that 2023 Ducati designed for a different rear tire. But he was hit harder than Marc Marquez, Fabio Di Giannantonio, and Alex Marquez. He was already in trouble in the preseason and could never fully compensate. But wait, why was a better rear tire a problem anyway? That's a reasonable question to ask. As Bezzecchi himself explained, the new rear tire is very good, but for me it never helps. I don't want so much grip. It was the corner entry to mid-corner face specifically. The bike felt too stiff, but more importantly, he just couldn't get it to turn. The rear tire was overpowering the front tire. That created either a crash hazard or at the very least understeer, and he could not carry the speed while making the corner in the same way some of his peers could. So that is partly how Fabio Di Giannantonio couldn't match Bezzecchi at all as a rookie in 2022, was much worse for most of 2023, then in 2024 beat Bezzecchi by 12 points despite missing 3 races and spending a good chunk of the season injured. Bezzecchi was already struggling when Aprilia signed him, so why did they? Let's talk about it. When it comes to Aprilia choosing Bezzecchi, I think let's approach this from 2 potential logical misconceptions about his signing. The first one is that once Aprilia landed its golden target, Jorge Martin, the other seat basically just needed to go to someone, anyone, and Marco Bezzecchi is anyone. The second one is that Marco Bezzecchi is Italian, Aprilia is Italian, so 2 plus 2 makes 4. That's why Marco Bezzecchi is at Aprilia. Second one we can deal with pretty easily here. We know for a fact, as a matter of record, that once Aprilia signed Martin, it was very open to keeping Maverick Vinales. That would have been an all-Spanish lineup again. No problem there. No demand there for Italian presence. I think you can be a bit fairer about the first one and say that Bezzecchi wasn't the first choice, but equally, we know that Enea Bastianini was a target. But we don't know for sure if Bastianini, despite greater success in 2024, would have been chosen over Bezzecchi, because we know that Aprilia really likes Bezzecchi and has for a long time.
It's worth noting that we don't know if Enea Bastianini was necessarily the first choice for Aprilia's second seat, because they were negotiating with him while they were trying to negotiate with Jorge Martin. He obviously went the KTM route and they managed to get a hold of Martin. And then at that point, it became pretty obvious that Aprilia boss Massimo Rivola's primary focus was on securing Marco Bezzecchi for next season. However, we also know that the attempts of Aprilia to secure Bezzecchi's signature go back a long, long way. Even at the team presentation last week, Bezzecchi was talking quite openly about how Rivola had first approached him to try and sign him as a MotoGP rookie back in 2020, in an era long before the Maverick Vinales time at Aprilia, back whenever the other candidates for that seat was, I think, Joe Roberts, who also turned them down as a MotoGP rookie. So this is not a flash in the pan decision. This was not a spur of the moment, let's sign the best Italian left thing for Aprilia. This is them, regardless of the route that it took to get to, this is them signing someone that they've always rated very highly and that they've always been trying to go after in MotoGP. Rivola has been pretty open and honest since the signing was announced that he sees Bezzecchi as a real talent. and has been really, really quick to encourage everyone, fans and media alike as well, I think, as some of the Aprilia higher-ups inside the Piaggio group, not to judge Marco Bezzecchi solely on a difficult 2024 season, but that this is a guy that has more talent than he was able to show last year because of the issues with the old Ducati and the new Michelin rear tyre that basically left everyone in a GP23 struggling anyway. So it feels like they got their man, even if it was a slightly roundabout route that they took to get him.
The rear tyre is the same this year, so Bezzecchi might have the same issues on an Aprilia. But remember, he already rode the Aprilia in Barcelona testing last year. So are there any early signs it will help him?
Marco, during last season, it feels like we never got to see your real potential with the GP23, the new rear tyre that didn't quite work together. I know you haven't had much time yet on the Aprilia, but has there been enough time? Has there been enough feeling to make you think, okay, this bike lets me be Marco again?
Well, it's difficult to say a proper answer to this question. I mean, of course, as you said, last year I struggled for many reasons. I gave my all, but it was difficult for me to achieve what I wanted. So I decided to change everything, and I've got this amazing possibility to join the Aprilia factory team. We tried the bike only once, so the sensation was very positive, very good, but still I don't know enough the bike. We don't know each other enough. So I want to wait after Sepang, after Thailand, the test, to see how I feel at the end of everything. For sure, I'm already in love with my bike and looks amazing, also with all the team that work for us. But still is a bit early to say this.
When you jumped on the bike for the first time in Barcelona, what was the bit that made you think, I like this?
Well, first of all, the color, was very cool. The bike in black, red, and also in silver. They made a wonderful design for me, so this already was very good. But also the good stability in the front. This was a very positive part. These are the two main things.
So, in other words, inconclusive. Bezzecchi was just a 10th off Martin in that test. It's encouraging, but you can't read too much into it. Instead, it will be something to watch very closely in pre-season testing. I expect Jorge Martin to finish ahead of Marco Bezzecchi in the 2025 standings. I think you do too, but the thing is, I would not be totally shocked if it goes the other way. And I think that, the range of available performances, the range of possibilities, I think that's why Aprilia signed him, and I think that's why it makes a whole lot of sense.
I mean, we've got two guys in this bike this year who I think will perform at different types of circuits, that will perform differently on certain days, and will potentially perform, when the other is not. And that probably means that it's going to be a year of pretty good balance for Aprilia, I think. We've talked before about how in the past, this is a manufacturer that built their way up from being good at some circuits to being consistent at every circuit and good at others, and turned that into, a kind of a title fight with Aleix Espargaro a few seasons ago. But it was always going to be a bit of a reset this year. It was always going to be a step backwards to take a step forwards, because that's what happens whenever you replace both your factory riders in one go. But with the combination of Martin and Bezzecchi, with guys who are both super, super quick on their day, but at different tracks, it means that there should be a fairly complete season ahead for Aprilia, even if both of their riders aren't that high in the championship standings, or if they're, there isn't a clear leader within those two groups. It's probably going to be enough that Aprilia should quite comfortably, you would expect, end up second in the Constructors' Championship. And that really has to be kind of the end goal right now in a season where we're talking about how this is a building year for a real title challenge in 2026. The thing about that, though, is that it means that, while everyone expects reigning world champion Jorge Martin to be the top guy out of those two, to be the clear favourite to finish ahead, it could go the other way. It's less likely, But there's no reason why Marco Bezzecchi couldn't come out of this season ahead if there's certain conditions that line up in his favour, if there's maybe a few wet races, if there's a few tracks where he's really able to perform. And, I'm looking like places like the second round of the championship in Argentina, which is somewhere that traditionally he has went very well and the Aprilia has went very well. It also wouldn't surprise me if we end up in an odd situation, quite like the 2024 title fight involving Martin as well, where one of them is ahead in the championship, but one of them has a lot more race wins. There are lots of options here. There are two super talented guys. And I think while Martin remains the favourite to be ahead at the end of the year, it won't be a huge shock if Bezzecchi's nipping in his heels or even just fractionally in front.
This is a signing that can fail. I don't think it's a no-brainer the way some signings are, but equally I think at its absolute peak, like the best possible version of how it works out, it wins your championship. Genuinely, I think this is a signing that can win Aprilia championship down the line if everything goes super right, especially with a new regulations formula coming in 2027.
We've talked again at length about how I believe that the 2024 championship was essentially peak Ducati. And that everything from now on is going to start taking away a little bit of their advantage. And the new regulations should be a huge factor in that, especially if they can retain both Martin and Bezzecchi, two guys who are going to be key in developing the new 850cc bike for 2027. If they go into a much more even championship with both the consistency and the speed that Bezzecchi showed in 2023, where he pushed, let's not forget, both Martin and Pecco Bagnaia pretty late on in the season to keep a little bit of championship pressure on. If you can do that again with the full backing of a factory team, how many times have I said it? Factory satellite teams don't win championships, and I know they did last year, but Bezzecchi has a much different structure around him now than he's ever had before. He's got the full might of a MotoGP constructor, and maybe that's one of the pieces that was missing, along with a little bit of balance in the competitiveness of their bike versus the others. That means that it's not unrealistic that we can see him putting together a title bid that makes it all the way to the checkered flag at the final round of the year in these coming seasons with Aprilia.